The desert holds its secrets well. Beneath the endless sky, in the spaces where the wind whispers through the canyons, something ancient waits. To the untrained eye, this land is nothing more than an expanse of dry earth and jagged stone. But to those who have lived here for centuries, it is a place alive with memory and warning. The Navajo people know this land better than anyone. They speak of its beauty, of the spirits that move through the rock formations, of the creatures that roam when the sun disappears behind the mesas. Not all of them are animals. Not all of them belong here. For generations, the elders have shared hushed stories, accounts of things that move in the night, figures that walk on two legs but leave behind tracks that shouldn't exist. These are not myths meant to frighten children. Those who have seen, know. The Navajo are a people of tradition. Their connection to the land is more than just survival. It is a bond passed down through bloodlines, spoken through the language of their ancestors. They have always understood the balance of nature, the delicate thread that holds the world together. But they also understand what happens when that balance is broken. There are places in the desert where no one builds, places where even the animals refuse to linger. In these spaces, something moves unseen. Something waits. The desert at night is unlike any other place on earth. It is not quiet. Not truly. The wind carries voices, soft at first, like whispers caught between the cliffs. Coyotes howl in the distance, but sometimes, their calls change mid-cry, shifting into something almost human. Ask the elders and they will tell you. If you ever hear a voice call your name in the dark, do not answer. If you see a shape watching from the ridgeline, do not go after it. If you hear footsteps behind you but nothing is there, run. Those who have lived here long enough know what happens when the desert turns its gaze upon you. Some who go missing in these lands are never found, not because they were lost but because something took them. There are stories. Stories of men who vanish without a trace, their footprints stopping abruptly in the sand. Stories of hunters who come across tracks that shift from human to something else. Stories of voices in the wind calling from nowhere. And then there are the ones who return, but they are not the same. The elders speak cautiously, their voices heavy with the weight of things best left unsaid. One such man, a respected storyteller, once shared a warning. His voice steady, his gaze locked onto the fire as if afraid to look beyond the light. They walk between two worlds, he said. Not human, not animal. They wear faces, but they are not the faces they were born with. If you see one, you must never speak its name. If you hear it call yours, it is already too late. His voice grew softer then, almost a whisper. We do not speak of them. Because when you speak of them, they listen. Some dismiss these warnings as folklore, stories meant to keep people from wandering too far from safety. But those who have looked into the eyes of something that should not exist, they do not question. They do not speak of what they saw. Because in the desert there are things older than time itself. Things that should not be named. And once you see them, they never forget you. There are things in this world that exist just beyond the edge of understanding. They move through the unseen spaces, watching, waiting. The Navajo have a word for them. Inaldlishia means one who walks on all fours. To outsiders, they are nothing more than whispers in the wind, legends told to keep travelers from wandering where they shouldn't. But to those who have lived on this land for generations, they are not legends. They are a warning. Among the Navajo there is a belief, one never spoken aloud unless necessary. A belief in those who have turned away from the path of balance, those who have abandoned their humanity in exchange for something else. A skinwalker. They are not born. They are made. Through rituals that should never be performed, through acts that stain the soul beyond repair, they cast aside what they once were. The price is steep. The power they gain is unnatural. By day they walk among men, their faces familiar, their voices unchanged. But when the sun sinks behind the mountains, when the last rays of light vanish from the canyon walls, they become something else. Skinwalkers are shapeshifters, moving between the form of man and beast at will. Some take the form of wolves. Others become coyotes, owls, even bears, predators that blend into the night, moving unseen and unheard. They do not hunt for food. They hunt for something else, and that is fear. It is said they can call a name in the voice of someone you trust, luring you away from safety. Some believe they can slip into the skin of another, wearing them like a disguise, walking among the living without ever being noticed. But those who know, those who have seen, say the most terrifying thing about a skinwalker is not the shape it takes. It is the moment when it looks at you. The moment when you realize the thing before you is not a man. Not anymore. They do not fear fire. They do not flinch at the sound of a gunshot. And if you see one, you do not run. You do not speak. You look away. Because the moment you acknowledge it, it knows you now. Among the Navajo, there are those who understand the old ways, those who keep the balance. Medicine men, healers, and elders who stand against the darkness. They know the signs. The tracks that shift from human to something else. The animals that do not behave as they should. The sense of being watched when nothing is there. They say a skinwalker cannot enter a home unless invited. They say it cannot take your name unless you give it willingly. But there is one thing they all agree on. Once a skinwalker has marked you, once it has set its gaze upon you, you will never truly be alone again. Many dismiss these accounts as folklore, the remnants of an ancient fear passed down through generations. But the Navajo do not speak of them lightly. They do not utter their names without reason. And when the wind howls through the canyons at night, when the shadows stretch too far across the sand, they do not go outside, because something is watching. Something that was once human, but is human no longer. The desert is not empty. To those who have never stood beneath its endless sky at night, it seems barren, just sand, wind, and silence. But those who have spent their nights out here, those who have listened, understand that the silence is not quiet at all. Something moves in that silence. Something watches. And at a remote military installation in Arizona, men trained to recognize threats, men armed with the best technology began to realize there was something out there that none of their weapons could stop. It began with the small things. Shadows where there should be none. Footsteps on the sand, no source, no figure to cast them. Then came the sounds. Low murmurs just beyond the floodlights. Words spoken in voices almost familiar but wrong. By the time the men at the base realized something was wrong, it was already too late. On the third night, 2 soldiers were assigned to patrol the outer fence. A routine sweep, nothing unusual. At first, their conversation was easy, talk of family, of home, of the lives they had left behind.
Man, you ever miss real food? Like, not this freeze-dried, processed garbage?
You kidding? First thing I'm doing when I get back is hitting up Sal's Diner. Burgers the size of my head.
Yeah, well, first thing I'm doing is sleeping for 3 days.
Nah, you're coming with me. Big party at my cousin's place. Open bar. No excuses.
Sounds like a plan.
Wait. Did you see that?
Probably just some local. Maybe a drifter.
No. Look at it.
The figure did not move, did not sway. The wind stirred the sand, but the figure remained perfectly still. Then, it wasn't there anymore. Not a step. Not a sound. Just gone. The base had cameras, motion sensors, thermal imaging. None of it worked. The cameras picked up movement where there was no one. The motion sensors blared warnings, but when soldiers checked, there was nothing. But something, was out there, watching. The fourth night everything changed. It began with a sound. A whisper, low, crawling through the dark, winding through the desert air. A voice they knew. A voice that should not have been there. Then the footsteps. Close. Too close. The sand did not crunch. There was no weight, no shift in the ground. Just the sound of steps circling them. And then, they saw it. A shape moving through the fog, its limbs too long, its head tilting at an unnatural angle. The soldiers raised their rifles.
Stop. Identify yourself.
The figure did not stop. They fired. The shots rang out in the night, deafening, sharp. And then, nothing. The bullets passed through. No impact. No sound of a body hitting the ground. The figure remained watching.
What the hell is that? Why isn't it going down?
It's not human.
Then, in an instant, it was gone. No movement. No retreat. Just gone. They reported what they had seen. But no one believed them. Men trained for combat, men who had seen war, had never felt fear like this. And for the rest of their deployment, none of them went outside after dark. Because something was still there watching. Some places were never meant to be disturbed. To the untrained eye, this was just another stretch of wilderness. A quiet patch of trees and earth where soldiers could sharpen their instincts, test their endurance. But the silence here wasn't natural. The men stationed in these woods had trained for war, had fought battles across the world, had seen things most civilians would never understand. And yet, nothing had prepared them for what waited in the darkness. Private John Harris had been through worse. South America, the Middle East, countless operations where hesitation meant death. Out here it should have been simple, a training mission, nothing more. But something was off. Even Harris, a man who dismissed superstition, a man who trusted in logic and steel, could feel it. An unease that settled in the chest. A stillness in the air that pressed down, heavy and unnatural. It wasn't just him. The others felt it too. Harris wasn't the kind of man to scare easy. But Mark had been uneasy since nightfall. At first, Harris had ignored it. Another soldier on edge. Another man letting his nerves get the better of him. But then Mark said something that made him stop.
You feel that? The air's thick tonight, like something's watching us.
It's just a quiet night, man. Nothing out here but trees and your paranoia.
You ever hear silence this deep? No crickets, no wind, nothing.
Then Harris noticed it too. The forest was holding its breath. No insects, no rustling leaves. Not even the distant hoot of an owl. Nothing. A silence so complete it rang in his ears. Then, movement. At first, Harris thought it was a trick of the light. A shadow shifting between the trees. A branch moving in the breeze. But then he saw the eyes. Two glowing pinpricks in the dark. Fixed on them. Unblinking. Harris had seen animals freeze when sensing a predator. In that moment he understood it. His body screamed to move, to run, but something deeper kept him locked in place. Mark's voice was barely above a whisper.
Skinwalker. Don't move. Don't look at it too long.
Then it moved. Not like an animal. Not like a man. One moment it was standing in the distance. The next, it was closer. And closer. Not walking. Not running. Just there. Harris didn't think. He acted. The first shot cracked through the air. Then another. And another. A barrage of bullets straight into the thing standing in front of them. But it did not fall. It did not flinch. The rounds tore through the space where a body should have been, but there was no impact. No blood. No sound. The thing just stood there. Watching. Then it was gone. No sound. No retreat. Just nothing. As if it had never been there at all. But Harris knew better. Something had been out there. Something had watched them. And somehow he knew it wasn't gone. Not really. They didn't speak. Didn't look back. Only when they reached the camp did they stop, did they try to catch their breath. But the woods never returned to normal. The crickets never started chirping again. The wind never picked up. And from that night on, none of them, not even Harris, the skeptic, the hardened Marine, stepped into those woods alone after dark. Because something else lived there. And it was still watching. There are places on every base where soldiers refuse to linger. Not because of orders. Not because of danger. But because of something else. Something unseen. They don't talk about it in the daylight. But at night, when the fire burns low and the only sound is the restless wind through the trees, the whispers begin. Green square. A patch of earth indistinct from the rest. No markers. No graves. No history written down. And yet every man stationed there knew. Knew to keep their back to a wall. Knew not to wander alone after sunset. Knew without ever being told that they were not the only ones walking those grounds. They don't scare easy. Trained to endure, to push forward, to silence fear with steel and discipline. But even the toughest among them had felt it. The weight of something unseen just behind their shoulder. A voice where there should be silence. Footsteps in empty hallways. Some ignored it. Others tried to explain it away. But late at night, when the fire burned low, the truth came out. One swore he heard his name. A woman's voice, clear as day, soft, familiar, calling him from the trees. Not a radio transmission. Not the wind. A whisper just beyond the reach of the firelight. He stood, scanning the darkness. No movement. No signs of life. But the voice came again. Close this time. Just behind him. His breath caught. Every instinct screamed, don't turn around. But he did. And nothing was there. Only the trees stretching into the void. Only the night, empty and still. Or so it seemed. Because something was waiting. Watching. Listening. Then there was the man in uniform. Spotted near the barracks, walking with the slow, deliberate steps of someone who belonged. No one questioned it at first. A fellow Marine. Just another night on base. Then came the realization. The man had no name tag. No unit patch. No insignia at all. And when one soldier got close enough, he recognized the face. The man had been dead for 2 years. Killed in an accident miles from here. Buried with full honors. Yet just nights ago he had been seen. Walking the grounds. Expression unreadable. Moving through the barracks, past soldiers who never thought to question his presence. Until it was too late.
You ever get that feeling, like someone's standing right behind you?
All the damn time. Especially in Green Square. You hear things. See things. And no one believes you.
The other night, I heard someone whisper my name, but when I turned around,
Let me guess. Nothing was there.
not nothing, but something.
The fire burned lower. The wind carried voices no one could trace. The woods stood silent as they always did. And the men stationed at Green Square sat in uneasy quiet, knowing morning would come. But the night was far from over. And they were not alone. They spoke in hushed voices. The encounters were never written in official reports, never discussed in daylight. But when the sun set and the campfires burned low, the memories crept back in. Moments that defied reason. Figures standing where no one should be. Voices calling from the shadows, familiar yet wrong. And the overwhelming, unshakable certainty that something else was there. Watching. Waiting. Listening. They spoke in hushed voices. The encounters were never written in official reports, never discussed in daylight. But when the sun set and the firelight flickered, the memories crawled back from the corners of the mind, unwelcome, unrelenting. Moments that defied reason. Figures standing where no one should be. Voices calling from the shadows, familiar yet wrong. And the overwhelming, unshakable certainty that something else was there. Watching. Waiting. Listening. The soldiers who told these accounts were trained to be fearless. Conditioned to survive in the harshest conditions. To face threats with clear eyes and steady hands. But even the most hardened among them hesitated when speaking of what they had seen in the darkness. It wasn't the enemy. It wasn't exhaustion. It wasn't paranoia. It was something else entirely. Something that followed them long after they left. Something that never truly let them go. There are places in this world where the past lingers. Where ancient warnings are more than superstition. Where the land remembers what it was before roads were built, before bases were established, before men in uniform arrived thinking they could claim it. And in those places, some things refuse to be forgotten. The Navajo people have spoken of them for generations. Warnings passed down, stories meant not for entertainment but survival. The creatures that walk like men but are not men. The ones that watch from the tree line waiting for nightfall. The ones that call out, using voices that do not belong to them. In the barracks, even among their own, soldiers would sometimes wake in the night to the sound of footsteps. Not the heavy, deliberate strides of a man on patrol, but something lighter. Something that moved just out of sight. They would lie still, listening. Breath held. Muscles tensed. The sound would stop, just outside their door. Then silence. No breathing. No movement. Only the unbearable knowledge that something was standing there. Waiting. And when they finally found the courage to look, nothing. But the air would be heavy. And the feeling would remain. Like unseen eyes still lingered in the dark. What happens when trained men who have seen war, refuse to speak of what they've encountered? What happens when something shakes them more than the enemy ever could? These are not tales told for amusement. These are not legends designed to frighten children. They are the words of men who looked into the unknown and walked away changed. Some left the desert behind, returning to the lives they had before. Others were not so lucky. Some never spoke of it again, pushing the memories to a place in their mind where they would never have to face them. But a few learned too late that you don't just walk away. Because sometimes what finds you in the desert follows you home. The Navajo have always known. They speak of what lurks beyond the safety of firelight. They tell of those who walk between worlds, slipping through the cracks in the veil. Not everyone believes. Not everyone listens. But those who have seen, those who have heard, they know better. Because out there, in the places where the land is still wild, where the wind carries voices that do not belong, something is waiting. And it does not forget.